Bonjour, je m'appelle Wilfred BIBIT.
Hola, mi llamo Sharafana.
Guten Tag. Ich heiße MAIEZATUL AKMAR.
Je suis enchanté de vous rencontrer.
Mucho gusto.
Schön, Sie kennenzulernen. Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. I hope you all will always in a pink of health. By the way, let me introduce myself first. My name is MAIEZATUL AKMAR BINTI AMATABONG. You may call me Mai. And today my team members and I will be presenting on the last region, which is region 10, the North America. Well, I really hope that our team can deliver a really good and understandable explanation to you guys so that you can get the knowledge. So don't forget to take notes. Well, before we begin, let me tell you that I'm gonna cover 4 first subtopic, which is the introductions, climate, natural hazards, and environmental problems under the region of North America. So, without wasting our time, let's take a look at the slide. As you can see, the one in the circle on the right side and the red arrow indicates the location of North America region from the world map. So let's zoom into the map to see the North America region clearly. As you can see there, North American region only consists of 2 countries, which is the United States and Canada. Canada and United States are bound to the east by Atlantic Ocean, and it's separating them from the Europe and Africa by thousands of miles. Hence, Canada's northern border is the Arctic, while Canada itself serves the entire northern border of the United States. The western border of both countries is the vast Pacific Ocean basin, which also puts thousands of miles between the region of East and Southeast Asia. Well, when you look at the southern border of this region, the southern border is divided between Mexico and the Curve of Mexico, which is located under the region of Latin America. Now, let me brief you a bit about the introductions of this region. As you know that this region is the only region that have the least numbers of countries, which is only 2. However, this region is the world's largest countries in terms of area. Okay, I know maybe some of you might question on why is it not the Russia Federation and neighboring countries? Because Russia is already big, have a huge surface area, right? But look at this. North America region only consists of 2 countries, and both United States and Canada got a large surface area, while Canada itself considered as the second largest country in the world. Well, when you look at the Russia Federation and neighboring countries region, which consists around 12 countries if I'm not mistaken, it is only the Russia that got a large surface area, or maybe Kazakhstan. But how about the rest like Azerbaijan, Armenia, Georgia, Uzbekistan, and the others? They are considered as a small countries, even though they are not the smallest in the world. So, as a conclusion, North America region is considered as the world's largest countries in terms of area, since all countries on that region have a large surfaces area. That's it. Okay, when you heard the words United States or Canada, what would be your first impression? I meant, what would be on your mind? Of course, the world's leading countries, developing countries, wealth, isn't it? But yeah, that's right, it's true. These regions have a wealth of natural resources, low population densities, and have a really high material living standards. The very high material living standards in United States and Canada attract migrants from all around the world who come to this region to seek for a prosperity and stability. Even though both countries got closely linked for their cultural and economically, but Canadian got a strong national pride as compared to the United States people. Thus, it prevented their identity from being stirred by their political and economically powerful neighbor. That's it for the introductions. Now let's move on to the climate. Basically, there are several climates under this region, which is around 6 like that, such as the tropical rainforest, subtropical, temperate, polar, boreal, and also dry climate. But now let's just focus on the top 3 climates under this region, which is the boreal climate, polar climate, and also the dry climate. First of all, the boreal climate. This climate, also known as the subarctic climate, which tend to have a really hot summers but long, cold and dark winters, whereby when the winter seasonal is coming, which falls on December to mid of March, the temperature is retained around -20 degrees Celsius. However, when it comes to the long winters, the temperature will be plunged up to -40 degrees Celsius. And it's really cold, right? While in summer, typically in the mid of July, the temperature is low, which is only 30 degrees Celsius. So where in the world are the boreal climate zoned? In short, they dominate the northern hemisphere between 50 to 70 degrees in latitude. In North America region, all but the coast of Alaska is covered by this climate, along with most of the northern half of Great Canadian Plains from the Yukon in the west to the Labrador in the east. As you can see, it is a place of snow, swamp, lake, and trees. Different species of trees tend to dominate in a different region. For example, in North America region, there are only spruces. Take a look at the picture. It is one of the examples of the boreal climate, which is located at Quebec provinces, Canada. That's it for boreal climate. Next is a dry climate. Regions lying within the dry climate group occur where precipitation is low, high evaporation rates, and wide temperature swings both daily and seasonally. Basically, there are 2 dry climate types, which is arid and semi-arid. Arid, for example, the desert, and semi-arid is the steppes, and North America region experience both. Dry climates are found throughout the globes in the western of North America to the southwestern of United States, such as the metropolitan area of Las Vegas, El Paso, and others. By the way, these climates tend to have a hot summers, a cold night, and moderate winters. In 1913, the highest temperature ever recorded is located within this region, whereby it reached around 56.7 degrees Celsius, which equally to 134 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's really triggered, right? And it is located at the arid Death Valley National Park at California, United States. Well, when you look at the pictures there, it is one of the examples of the dry climate, which is the desert that is located at Phoenix. And that's all for dry climate of this region. Now, the last climate that we will cover is the polar climate. Basically, there are two types of polar climate, which is tundra and ice cap. And it lies within the Arctic and Antarctic circles near the North and South Pole. Polar climates are usually dry and do not get much rain. The temperature is below freezing, icy, and covered with snow most of the time. And it occurs because polar climates do not get direct sunlight like the other parts of the Earth. So talking about the temperature, both North and South Pole have a different temperature, whereby during summer, the temperature in the North Pole is around -32 degrees Celsius, while in the South Pole it is around -18 degrees Celsius. By the way, during winter, the North Pole temperature will be around -40 degrees Celsius, while for the South Pole, the temperature will be plunged to -76 degrees Celsius. The climate change has caused an increase in temperature of polar climate, which has resulted in more ice melting there. In this region, the North Pole, which is the Arctic, consists of frozen Arctic Ocean, northern Canada, in Greenland. By the way, the North Pole is not as cold as the South Pole because the water in the ocean underneath the ice make the area somewhat warmer. However, the South Pole is continent of Antarctica, which land covered with a frozen ice. This area is full of mountains, which resulting it to be even cooler than the North Pole. The most interesting fact in this climate is that there is a cute animals like penguins and polar bear that can only survive within this climate. And that's it. Now let's move on to the next subtopic, which is the natural hazard. As we know, United States and Canada are really popular of these natural hazards, such as hurricanes, tornadoes, lightning, river floods, severe winter storms, or even an earthquake volcanoes. So let's take a look at these natural hazards one by one. The first natural hazard that we will cover is the hurricanes. Hurricanes can be defined as storms, violent winds which forms over tropical and subtropical water. When a storm's maximum reach 74 miles per hour, it is considered as a hurricane. Hence, it can threaten the mid and southern Atlantic coast and Gulf Coast states. As predicted, hurricane season will begin on June to the end of November. However, it can occur outside of the time frames. There you can see the latest satellite image of the Hurricane Michael that is taken on 10 October 2018. The Saffir-Simpson hurricanes actually have a scale or category from 1 to 5 rating based on the hurricane's maximum sustained wind. As you can see in the picture, there is an example of two highest stage of hurricanes, which is the Category 4 and Category 5. Category 4 cause a severe damage, whereby the wall-built homes will be damaged and the trees will be blown over. However, the highest stage, which is Category 5, can cause many damages which is the buildings will be destroyed and the roads will be cut off. Therefore, the higher the category, the higher the hurricane's potential for property damage. In 2019, there was a recent cases of hurricanes which called as Hurricanes Dorian. As a result, these Category 5 storms has pummeled the island for 3 days as it slowly edged towards the United States. As you can see in the pictures that has been taken by the satellite, the storms hit the Bahamas first and then it goes to the edge of the South Carolina until the North Carolina. Next is the tornadoes. Tornadoes is the nature's most violent storms where it can uproot trees, destroy buildings, and also turn the harmless object into a deadly missile. Worstly, it also can devastate a neighborhood in just a second. It appears as a rotating funnel-shaped cloud that extends to the ground with whirling winds that can reach up to 300 miles per hour. Look at the picture. There is a tornado streaks across the rural field in Camp, Colorado, United States. Tornadoes are really dangerous because once it happens, the other thunderstorms on radar may include such as the hail, severe winter, lightning, and also a flash floods. Actually, tornadoes can form at any time of the year, but mostly it occurs in the spring and summer months. So, as you can see in the slide, the left picture shows an approximate touchdown of a killer tornadoes in 2020 from the world map, while the right side shows a pictures of a deadly tornado in Nashville, Tennessee, which happens during the midst of COVID-19 last year. And as a result, the tornadoes have shredding at least 40 buildings, causing severe damage and killed almost 19 people. The third natural hazard on this region is the river floods. River floods is an accumulation of water over a normally dry lands. It caused by the overflow of inland water, such as the river and streams, or others from the sources, such as heavy rains or drought. River floods commonly happen in the late of winter and early of spring, which can result from heavy rainfall to the rapidly melting growth of ice chains. These natural hazards affected all areas in the region of United States. For instance, on 20 March last year, there was a river floods occurs in Ohio and Indiana, which at least 8 people have died and dozens were rescued after the days of the flash floodings and the following days of a heavy rain. The pictures on the right side shows the police and the road department assisting the residents that impacted by the flash floodings. Besides that, there is also a lightning. This natural hazard is an electrical discharge caused by imbalance between the storm clouds and the ground within the clouds. It is extremely hard that a flash can hit the air around it to temperatures 5 times hotter than the sun's surface. After that, it creates a pealing thunder that you can hear in a short time. The picture they shows a lightning strike over downtown that is taken in Tampa, Florida, because Florida is the most affected area for a lightning. The victims of a lightning can result in a cardiac arrest, which is a heart stopping at the time injury. Although some of them may appear to have a delayed death, but a few days later they will be suffered in irreversible brain damage. The statistic has proved that 10% of the people struck by the lightning are killed, and the other 90% are facing a various degrees of disabilities. Number 5 is the severe winter storm, which is caused by a strong continuous wind. Severe winter storm is also called as a blizzard, which is a packed combination of blowing snow and dangerous wind chills, resulting in a very low visibility. Even though most deaths are not directly related to the storms itself, but they're gonna die in a traffic accident or an icy road. The most affected area is in the upper of Great Plains and the Midwest, Western Mountains in the northeast of United States. Recent cases recorded was in 20 February last year, where a severe winter storms hit the Washington, and at least 2 people lost their lives. So look at the figure. There you can see the conditions of where the severe winter storms could actually happen. So the last natural hazards under this region is the earthquake volcanoes. A volcano is a rupture in the earth that allows the hot lava, volcanic ashes and gases to escape from the magma chamber below the surface. So what actually an earthquake volcanic is? A volcanic tectonic earthquake is an earthquake caused by the movement resulting in the pressure charge where the rock around the magma has experienced stress, and this stress resulting the rocks to break and move. Canada and United States are listed for country that has an active volcanic activity for the past thousands of years. Back then, in 1980, the Mount Kiliah has bombarded the Hawaii's Big Island in a series of eruptions, and Washington's St. Helens Mountain that killed almost 57 people. And the most affected area in this region is along the west coast of Alaska southward through the California. So the picture on the slide shows the earthquake volcanoes that is happened during summer with lava bombs, volcanic ash, and also smokes. So these are the list of the top 5 most dangerous volcanoes active in United States. First is the Hawaii Mount Kiliah, of course, and the Washington's Mount St. Helens and Rainier, and then the California's Mount Shasta, Oregon's Three Sisters, and the last one is the Alaska Akutan Island. Now let's move on to the regional environmental issues. Generally, there are 6 environmental issues under this region, which is the Dust Bowl disaster, mining, natural burning, the ground level ozone, the acid rain, and also the Colorado River. So let's take a look one by one. The first environmental issue that we will cover is the Dust Bowl disaster. The Dust Bowl was a natural disaster that destroyed the Midwest in the year of 1930s. The cause of this disaster is because of the unsustainable farming practices worsened the drought effect, and it's killing the crops that kept soil in place. The Dust Bowl disaster occurs in the western Oklahoma, Kansas, and Texas because of the plowing of subhumid grassland, which winds blew away the dried finer soil particles and left piles of sand behind. As a result, it made the Great Depression even worse. The dust can cause a pneumonia to the children. At its worst, the storm blew the dust to the Washington and destroyed a large part of United States agricultural production. The latest drought happens in United States was in 2012. As a result, the dry spell cost America some $50 billion in agricultural losses, forest fire destruction, and also some financial casualties. Next is the Colorado River. This river is an important water supply for the humans and animals, and its drainage basin covers a really big area, including the Mexico, Nevada, Arizona, California, and others. What is the drainage basin? Drainage basin is any area of land where precipitation collects a drain into a common outlet such as a river, bay, or other body of the water. In the last 70 years, the Colorado River Basin states have grown faster than most other states in nation, and several are projected to continue on this trajectory. Water from aquifers and the Colorado River facilitated the expansion of farming into arid areas of the southwestern United States. As southwestern populations grew, competition and controversy erupted between local states over the use of fresh water and the depletion of groundwater resources. As you can see on the right side of the slide, there is a map of the Colorado River and also the image of the Colorado River. Number 3 is the natural burning. Natural fires are generally started by lightning. A very small percentage started by spontaneous combustion of dry fuel such as sawdust and leaves. For example, some classification includes the smoking, recreation, miscellaneous, and also the equipment. Settlement in arid areas where natural burning cycles frequently occur in the vegetation present a growing hazard. Wildfires increasingly affect populated areas such as the Los Angeles Basin in Southern California, where businesses and homes may be consumed by fires in a matter of minutes. According to the New York Times, California climate has always been fire-prone because of the climate change. In 2019, the latest wildfires happened in California. Around 275 wildfires have broken out across California. The most destructive year was in 2018, where 1,500 wildfires scorched through the state, killing around 100 people. Another environmental issues in this region is the mining. Mining is the extraction of valuable minerals or other geological materials from the earth, usually from our body, lode, vein, seam, reef, or placer deposit. It can turn the forest and wildlife into a barren moonscape. Mining on a large scale produced huge pits for extracting copper and other metals ores in the West. Up to 1950, the street mining of air pollution hills for coal devastated the large areas of eastern Kentucky and once Virginia. So, how is it done? The coal companies first raise an entire mountainside, ripping trees from the ground and clearing brush with huge factors. As explosive these work into this hole at mountain tops are literally blown apart. Coal companies use explosive to blast as much as 800 to 1000 feet of the top of mountain in order to reach the thin coal, since it is very deep below. Number 5 is the ground level ozone. Ground level ozone is a colorless and highly irritative gas that forms above Earth's surface. It is also called as pollutant. The ground level ozone is formed when heat and sunlight allow the reaction of two other pollutants such as nitrogen oxide and volatile organic compounds. Chemical is normally came from industrial plants, vehicle exhausts, electric utilities, wildfire smokes, and oil and gas extraction. Cities like Washington and Los Angeles are plagued by smoke and high concentration of ground level ozone generated from the exhaust gases of increasing numbers of vehicles and thermal power plants. As a result, it can build up to unhealthy levels, especially without wind or rains to mix up the air. The risks might occur such as asthma attack, pneumonia, coughing, shortness of breath, and also a cardiovascular damage. So the last environmental issues under this region is the acid rain. Acid rain is caused by a chemical reaction when compounds such as sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide are released into the air. The power plant creates a blanket of smoke that covers the Ohio River Valley. Acid rain affected the trees and caused rivers and lakes downwind in the northeast of United States and eastern Canada to become more acidic. As a result, the air pollution along the Ohio River Valley is worse than on the east west with a sustainable exposure. The worst impact of acid rain is that it affects the aquatic ecosystem as well as the cultural and the material resources. The risk that might arise is whereby if the air pollution happens where the sulfur dioxide and nitrogen dioxide is released to the air, it can cause a respiratory disease even worse. Hence, it also make it hard for the people with an asthma or chronic bronchitis to breathe.
Hello everyone, my name is FREDY BIBIT and I will be presenting the North America history, culture and the organization in North America, which is NAFTA. So, we will learn how North America became a vast economy globally. So, stay tuned. Hi everyone, now I will talk about the next topic, which is regional history and culture. In this topic, we will learn about the history, all history about the emergence of the region, the Native Americans, about the European settlers who is the first came to North America and settled there, and then we will talk about the wealth and natural resources that they had and have in the North America, Then lastly, I will talk about human resources, which is I will talk about the people, skills, the education, technology, and so on. Okay, firstly, I will talk about the emergence of a region, on how did the North America exist. Brief explaining actually. So, North America and its indigenous population were largely mysterious or unknown to the rest of the world until Columbus' expedition, which he credited with discovering America. The landmass was inhabited long before Europeans made contact. Although Christopher Columbus was often credited with the discovery, indigenous people inhabited the landmass long before Europeans' contact. Early migrants of the Americans most likely traveled from Asia through the Beringia land bridge that once connected the Siberia and Alaska over 10,000 years ago. Indigenous people, known as the first Native Americans in the United States, were divided into several different groups or tribes, and every tribe consisting of only a few small families and others surrounding vast territories and empires. Some groups practice hunting and gathering, but many practice settled agriculture. Before European contact, an estimated 50 million indigenous people were living in the North and South America. European colonialization completely changed the cultural landscape of North America. In 1492, Columbus contacted the Bahamas, Cuba, and Hispaniola Islands, spurring the American, Spanish, and Portuguese colonization. The term Indian was originally used by Columbus, who thought he had arrived in the East Indies, which is kind of funny though, but it's the truth. So the global connection began with the exploration of the region by various European interests. They were overwhelmed by the cultural power of forced conversion of their social customs to the different technologies. So the sweeping occupation of the continent completely transformed North America by Europeans. In the 16th century, French, Italian, Portuguese, and English explorers came ashore along the eastern seaboard of North America. The Spanish explorer named Hernando de Soto made his way from Florida deep into the continent heartland in 1540s. In the early 17th century, the British established colonies along the Atlantic coast of Virginia in 1607 and including Massachusetts in 1620. The Dutch explored the Atlantic seaboard looking for trading opportunities, founding the city named the New Amsterdam, or now we call it the New York, at the mouth of the Hudson River and Berwick further upstream. So the French, they explored the northern interior of the continent. They found the Quebec City at the mouth of the St. Lawrence River and Montreal further upstream. Assisted by enslaved Africans, colonists, and settlers, formed northern European-built villages, towns, port cities, and plantations along the eastern coast over next 2 centuries. There was a lot of war happened after Europeans' arrival between themselves and including Native Americans. In the mid-1700s, the British became dominant power, and the settlers fought to become the independent USA by signing the Declaration of Independence in 1776. Canada arose most out of the colonial territories first established along with St. Lawrence and the Great Lakes and remained a British colony for longer than the United States. Then Canada achieved independence through the British North America Act in 1867. After gaining independence, they had occupied most Native American and Aboriginal people lands in the central parts of the continent. Okay, now we move on 5.2, which is Native Americans. We will learn about the history of Native American. So recent evidence suggests that humans first came to North America, migrated from Siberia to Alaska, at least 20,000 years ago, and perhaps earlier, because there's no specific evidence actually when they came to Alaska. Most of them arriving during the Ice Age. At the time, the global climate was cooler, polar ice caps were thicker, and sea levels was very low. The Bering Land Bridge, a vast low landmass more than 1,000 miles or 1,600 kilometers wide, connected Siberia to Alaska, which makes bands of hunters cross by foot or small boats into Alaska and travel down the west coast North America. In 1500 AD, they live in hierarchically structured with ethnic groups commonly called tribes. By 15,000 years ago, humans had reached nearly the tip of South America and had moved deep into the continent. By 10,000 years ago, global temperature began to rise as the ice caps melted, sea levels rose, and the Bering Land Bridge was submerged beneath the sea. Over thousands of years, the people settling in the Americas domesticated plants, created paths and roads, clearing forests, built permanent shelters, and sometimes created elaborated social system. About 3,000 years ago, corn was introduced from Mexico into is now the southern U.S. desert, as were other Mexican domesticated crops, particularly squash and beans. Such food crops are thought to have been closely linked to settled life and the North Americans' prehistoric population growth. These foods provide surplus that allowed some community members to engage in trade and other specialized activity other than agriculture, hunting, and gathering, making possible large city-like regional settlement. For example, by 1,000 years ago, the urban settlement of Chokia, including suburban settlement in what is now called Illinois, across the Mississippi from St. Louis. They covered 5 square miles or 12 square kilometers and was home an estimated 30,000 people. Here, people specialize in craft, trade, and other activities beyond the production and of basic necessities. The United use a surplus from farming to support urban development. In Dakota, inhabited the prairie environment on the plains between Mississippi River and Rocky Mountains, and kill bison to supply food and clothing, including the introduction of horses, facilitated hunting travel for hunting-based societies. So some location in the arid southwest favored the development of irrigation, farming, and distinctive villages building by the Pueblo cultures. Ancestral Pueblo culture, also called Anasazi, prehistoric Native American civilization existed from approximately 100 to 1600 AD. Generally centered on the area where the boundaries of U.S. states are now Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Utah intersect. Along the Pacific coast from present-day North California to southern Alaska, small tribes fished plentiful seafood, including salmon and tuna. They carved the region's tall trees into dugout, canoes, plant houses, and totem poles. The Arctic and Pacific coast, the continents supported small numbers of Aleuts and Inuits. The rapid expansion of European settlement was facilitated by Native American and Aboriginal populations. Vulnerability to European diseases. Having been isolated from the rest of the world for many years, Native American and Aboriginal people had no immunity to measles, malaria, and smallpox. The diseases transmitted by Europeans and Africans who had built up immunity to them. These diseases kill up to 90% of Native Americans and Aboriginal population within first 100 years of contact. On top of that, the war between the amongst Europeans was the second contributor towards the Native and Aboriginal deaths. Technologically advanced from European weapons, trained dogs and horses also took against Native, who often only had bows and arrows. Some Native Americans in the Southwest acquired horses and guns from the Spanish and led to use them in warfare against the Europeans, but the other technologies could not compete. There were roughly 18 million Native Americans and Aboriginal people in North America in 1492. By 1542, after just few Spanish expeditions, there were only half of the number. By 1907, slightly more than 400,000 or more, or mere 2% of the original population remain. Okay, now we move on the next subtopic, which is European settlers. In the 1500s, several Europeans began to settle in the region, including Britain, France, and Netherlands, Russia, Spain, and Sweden. The French settled the mouth of the St. Lawrence River in today's Canada in the early 1500s. Farm settlements were established along the banks of St. Lawrence Valley. Spanish settled parts of the present-day Colorado, California, Arizona, Mexico, Texas, Florida, and Carolina. So the British first targeted the tidewater lands around the Chesapeake Bay. The British established the first permanent settlement in Jamestown, present-day Virginia, after an early failed attempt on Roanoke Islands, the first English settlement in the New World. It was founded by explorer Sir Walter Raleigh in August 1585. There was no clear explanation for why British fell, but in 1998, archaeologists studying tree-ring data from Virginia found that extreme dryness condition persisted between 1587 and 1589. This condition undoubtedly contributed to the death of the aka Lost Colony. But where the settlers went after they left Roanoke remains a mystery. So by the late 1600s, large plantations in Virginia, the Carolinas, and Georgia were cultivating crops such as tobacco, rice, and cotton, which became valuable export. Tidewater settlers have identified the local climate and soils that are well suited to tobacco cultivation. Sales of tobacco in England attract more settlers, and British government took over the land. And an increasing number of commercial crops have been grown, for example, indigo, rice, sugarcane, and cotton. Then in 1620s, religious freedom-seeking migrants from England on the way to Virginia brought a second wave of British settlers. They landed at Cape Cod, Massachusetts today, and moved across to the Bay of Plymouth. They established a community-based urban settlement pattern for self-governing villages and subsistence economy. In 1630s, the Netherlands was the first to settle in the Middle Atlantic between New England and Virginia around New Amsterdam, their port city. In March 1664, King Charles II of England granted the land of the colony to his brother, the Duke of York, and then changed the name from New Amsterdam to New York. The Dutch left the colony without a fight. Why? Because the Dutch colony only about 9,000 people live in New Amsterdam, leaving it helpless to attack from the English or British, who fought 3 wars against the Dutch. their main commercial rivals between 1652 and 1674, and vastly outnumbered them in the New World. But don't worry, English and Dutch settlers lived together peacefully in New York. Then, on March 4, 1681, King Charles II of England granted William Penn land in America as payment for a debt of £16,000 the king owed to Penn's father. It declares an admiral in the British Navy, and he named the new colony Pennsylvania of Penn's Wood for the Penn's family. In the 1700s, many Scottish and Germans came to the region, and 1783, after independence of America, springboards were formed for thousands of people who moved westward within the US. The plantation was first established in the Virginia Tidewater. So now let's move on to 5.4, which is wealth of natural resource. So in the primary product and new lands, the primary product in the new lands was the long warm summer of the widening coastal plain southward from New York encouraged the commercial cultivation of subtropical crops. For example, tobacco, cane, rice, indigo, later cotton. The United States tripled the territories by 1850 by buying land from France, Spain, and acquiring the western third by negotiation and military conquest. So how did they do that? From acquiring from a small land when the American independence to a huge land and in 1862. So let's watch this video how.
The history of the territorial expansion of the United States is a story of wars won and lost, of regions bought and sold. When France lost the French and Indian War in 1763, it ceded most of its possessions in North America to Britain, extending British domain beyond the original 13 colonies. Since Spain was an ally of France, it had to give East and West Florida to Britain, but was compensated by France with territory west of the Mississippi. With the Declaration of Independence from Britain in 1776, the United States was formed from the original 13 colonies, but had to wage war with Britain to establish its sovereignty. The Treaty of Paris concluded the Revolutionary War in 1783, with America expanding to the Mississippi River and Spain recovering Florida, since in this war it was an American ally. But in 1800, Spain secretly ceded the Louisiana Territory back to France, where Napoleon was hoping to establish an empire in North America. When President Thomas Jefferson learned of this arrangement, he became concerned with the potential threat of an aggressive empire builder. He sent envoys to France to purchase New Orleans and West Florida for $10 million. Instead, they came back with the entire Louisiana Territory for $15 million. Napoleon had needed money for his war against Britain. In 1810, American settlers led a revolt against the Spanish in West Florida, capturing the port of Baton Rouge. The remainder of West Florida was annexed later by President James Madison. In an agreement after the War of 1812, Britain ceded the Red River Basin, and the boundary between the United States and British territory, what is now Canada, was set at the 49th parallel, with the Oregon Territory to be jointly occupied. In 1821, the Spanish cessions of East and West Florida were finalized, and Spain surrendered any claims to the Pacific Northwest. Later that year, Mexico proclaimed its independence and became another power in North America. Settlers had been moving steadily into Texas, and as in Florida, fought for independence, this time against Mexico. The Republic of Texas was declared in 1836. The slavery issue had kept Texas from being annexed for several years, but with the threat of a Mexican invasion, President Polk authorized its annexation. American settlers moved into Oregon Territory, causing border disputes. Rather than risk war in 1846, the border was extended along the 49th parallel as it is today. But to the south, war erupted between Mexico and the United States over the Texas border. Mexico lost and relinquished all claims north of the Rio Grande River, as well as New Mexico and California. Diplomat James Gadsden purchased additional Mexican territory for $10 million in 1853, establishing the present-day boundary. In 1867, William Seward purchased Alaska for $7.2 million from Russia, which had been ready to abandon its designs for an empire so far away. The same year, Canada gained its independence from Britain. The Spanish-American War of 1898 proved Hawaii to be of strategic importance to the U.S. Navy, and it was annexed from Spain as well as Puerto Rico. By 1912, all of the territories of the lower 48 were admitted as states. Alaska and Hawaii joined the Union in 1959, completing the current formation of the United States.
So now we know how the expansion of United States. So the Homestead Act of 1862 provided very cheap or even free farmland for families. Settlers spread to the vast interior plains and tackled the challenges of clearing vegetation, marking borders, building up buildings, creating roads, and buying livestock and seeds. The United States exported a range of agricultural products to Europe from the early 1800s. They're competing directly with European farmers on bulk grain markets. So what is Homestead Act of 1862? The Homestead Act intact during the Civil War in 1862 provided that any adult citizen or intended citizen who had never borne arms against the US or never fight with the US government could claim 160 acres of surveyed government land. Okay, so now we move on to the second wealth of natural resources, which is resource for US manufacturing. So US capital manufacturing independence has inspired Americans to set up their own manufacturing industries, producing products that were originally unobtainable from Britain. Textiles, metal goods, and leather goods were among the first to create, mostly operated by water mills in New England, New Jersey, and Eastern Pennsylvania. Coal in Eastern Pennsylvania and around Pittsburgh replaced the 1850s, and later the steel industry that set the counter industry revolution. The northeastern United States soon emerged the powerful area of the world, housing a large part of the population with increasing materials resource and associated political power dependent on manufacturing industries. The primary emblem of the early steel-based industrial revolution, the railroads, has extended through the nation to the Pacific coast. The northeastern United States manufacturing belt, which initially grew to the basis regional coal, iron, and agricultural resource from the Midwest, later extract mineral resource from other parts. Railroads connected western mountain mines to economic political center of to the east. The mining of gold, silver, and then copper and zinc. The new western land provided money for further production and broadened the scale of the metal industry of the late 1800s. In the 1900s, the abundance of natural resources combined with the use of river for irrigation, navigation, and hydroelectric, and the discovery of oil and natural gas attract more people to manufacturing companies to the south and west from center of the country. While most Americans focus on natural resource was on potential for economic benefits. Influencing groups from the late 1800s forced the federal government to set aside large area of attractiveness, wilderness of areas of cultural interest such as national parks, long before much settlement had taken place. Most of these are the west, although smaller parts of eastern land have also been acquiring and designated as national parks. Alright, now let's move on to new subtopic, which is new people, new skills. In this subtopic, we will learn about the new people came to North America and what the new skills of North America to develop their countries. So first of all, let's talk about the human resources. The variety of richness of North American natural resources such as minerals, climate, and soils combined with diverse stream of immigrants to build farm work of expansion, exploration, and development. Okay, now let's talk about the new people and what are the new skills. So immigrants came initially from Northern Europe. They brought European culture, traditions, and individual skills and initiatives. There was ample space within developing United States for a variety of ethnically, nationally, religiously diverse groups to establish themselves. Africans forced to migrate to the region to serve primarily as slaves in the agricultural industries remained the target of debilitating discrimination even after the civil wars in 1861 to 1865 guaranteed their freedom. Okay, now let's move on to education and technology. What are the education and technology? So the United States tried to establish the condition under which its entire population could prosper by making the most of its freedom under the democracy constitutions. It established compulsory education much earlier than Europe countries. It focused on technology transfer started at the end of 1800s, with land grants to set up engineering and agricultural universities in several countries. Alright, now we move on to management of manufacturing. So along with innovation industrial system and methods, the natural and human capital rapidly took the United States to forefront of the world economic activity in the late 1800s. The widening of the United States internal market has given rise of demands, stimulated many innovations. Americans also gained economics to scale by constructing large factories for improved production. Horizontal integration occurred with the acquisition of many manufacturers of the same commodity, by financiers giving new owners of significant shares of overall supply of products allows them to set customer prices. Vertical integration brought this process further by uniting the producer commodity inputs to the product output in the single organizational framework. As an example of this kind of method, so Andrew Greenidge designed larger steel mills for economics of scale in 1870s. In the period of economic crisis, he purchased other steel mills to integrate the steel industry horizontally. In the next step of his vertical integration plan, he brought both coal and iron mines that supplied raw materials that heavy engineering companies that use steel. By 1900s, the United States Steel Company of Carnegie dominated the market. So in the United States, Henry Ford then introduced the idea of factory production line to a new level. He applied it to the assembly of the wide variety of components of manufacturers of automobiles. His company developed thousands of limited versions of growing demand. He practiced called Fordism, have been widely adopted by other sectors and by other nations. Mechanization of production, it was another aspect that made the United States the world leader in manufacturing goods by the mid-1900s. Okay, now we move on to the next topic, which is the organization in North America, which is NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement. So in North America, trade has been governed by the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, between Canada, Mexico, and the United States. In 1992, the signing of preliminary agreement, and then in 1993, approved in the country's legislation, and then this agreement was established in 1994 to increase economic cooperation between the three countries. Previous NAFTA, although the US and Canada engaged in free trade, goods purchased and sold, but between Mexico and US were subject to tariffs or additional taxes. In 2018, NAFTA was replaced by the US-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, as a result of the renegotiation of NAFTA sought by the US President Donald Trump in 30 November 2018. Compared to NAFTA, USMCA increased environmental and working regulation and incentivizes more domestic production of cars and trucks. Okay, now we move on to the next subtopic, which is provision and features. So the first provision and features of the NAFTA is to reduce barriers. By abolishing the tariffs and imports and export within 15 years of implemented. Before NAFTA, customs duties of 30% or more on export goods to Mexico were common. NAFTA addressed this imbalance by pass out tariffs over 15 years. Construction, engineering, accounting, advertising, consulting or managing, architecture, health care management, commercial, education, and tourism are among areas covered. So the next one is the national goods status. On the key provisions of NAFTA provided of the status of the national goods to products imported from the NAFTA countries. No state, provincial, or local government could impose taxes or duties on these goods. So the next one is the certificate of origin to claim tariffs. So the NAFTA certificates of origin shall be used by Canada, Mexico, Puerto Rico, and United States to determine whether the imported goods are subjected to reduced or eliminated duty. The certificate must be attached to the invoice if the shipment is valued at more than $1,000. This document must be completed legibly by print or type and in full by the exporter to obtain preferential tariff agreement. The document must be also in the possession of the importer at the time of the declaration. For example, a product made from Uruguay but shipped from the United States will still have to pay duty when it enters Mexico or Canada if it does not apply for a certificate. The next one is establish commissions. It is to handle labor and environmental issues. 3 countries agreed to set up commission to deal with labor and environment issues. The commissions have the power to impose severe fines on governments that do not consistently lay down the laws. Environmental and labor groups have repeatedly claimed that the guidelines have not been enforced. The US and Canada are among the countries that have signed the agreement. The next one is a protection to secure intellectual property right. Participant countries will respect patent, trademark, and copyrights, in particular to protect small enterprise. NAFTA parties shall protect all kinds of computer programs as literary works and all types of data as compilations. Copyright owner of the computer programs and sound recording producers are permitted to prohibit the rental of their products by others. Alright, next is supporters claim. So supporters companion NAFTA for its equal treatment of business opportunities for all companies through the region. NAFTA promotes democracy and political stability. Mexico economy has increased in its efficiency after many Mexican market, including small and mid businesses, have opened up to the United States. The tariffs on 30% or higher on export goods to Mexico were common. They took some time to process caused by paperwork and Mexico tariffs on products made from the US on average 250% higher than the United States duty on Mexican products. So NAFTA have solved the state issue by developing this rapid agreement. US grocery prices probably are higher without tariff-free imports from Mexico. So this is how all business used to get affected by the NAFTA. The first one is whoever wants to do business in Mexico needs to have physical presence or office there, which has to be expensive for small firms to do. So it results large firms, any large firms, to have the advantages over smaller ones. NAFTA has looked into this matter and eliminate the requirement for physical presence, which result in a small business to gain the following, which is the Mexican market is growing fast, promises for more export opportunities, creates thousands of jobs in Mexico. They enjoy a higher standard of living, high employment rates in the Macuela zone, NAFTA related to manufacturing plants that most other parts of the countries. So NAFTA has successfully increased trade and economic growth for all three countries, where the gross domestic products from the combined economics are more than $20 trillion. The US Chamber of Commerce, which represents small businesses' interest, was also one of the most active supporters of NAFTA. Business proponents believe protectionist policies and tariffs-free will be secure under NAFTA. However, the government will not take place in controlling business and industry and removing private ownership. So it results criticism. So the criticism, on the other hand, critics point of the disadvantage of NAFTA. NAFTA has been criticized for taking up the US jobs, although positive things have also been done to the economy. So first problem is the certain estimates indicate that it led to job losses. Argument about exporting thousands of jobs from the US to Mexico. Workers in those industries, such as manufacturing, automotive, textile, computer, and electrical appliances industries, had to accept lower wages. Opposition seems that Mexico is only act as service role to Canada and the United States. Second is labor migration has surpassed wages. US and Canada companies seems to head back up and move to Mexico and taking advantages of cheap labor. Unions mentioned that thousands of jobs have been lost already in the United States because US companies can enjoy to manufacture products in Mexico with less labor cost, and fewer environment or labor and restrictions. Without the unions, workers could not bargain for better wages. So, opposition to the NAFTA viewed the agreement as the radical gain. The mechanism of multinational cooperation seeks profit could undermine local governments' issues of legalization designed to protect the public interest. For example, NAFTA makes regulation that could protect the rights of its companies to free trade over the right of people in the industry area, breathing in polluted environment that has become the environmental main argument. So the US companies have dragged the Mexican environment to keep costs low. Agriculture industry in Mexico has used more fertilizers and other commercial because Mexico lacks of experience with new environment regulations. It could significantly worsen environmental and health standards and displace family farmers in signatory countries. The Macuela zone is among the worst in the world and the highest rate of cancer in Texas, Mexico. The border has also been recorded as the highest in the world. This will increase Mexico's weight also on its shoulder as labor abuse, drug trafficking, and crime also widespread through Mexico northern border region. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and good evening to Sir and my fellow friends. My name is SYARAFANA binti REZANULL, and today I'll be continuing the presentation of North America region. Moving on to the issues in Canada, there are two issues in Canada. Firstly is Canadian patterns of ethnic integration. In this issue, government policy securing multiculturalism and well-known high living standards combine to create Canada an extremely attractive destination for peoples immigrating from their homelands. The Canadian federal government instituted policies banning ethnic discrimination and protecting the rights of immigrants. For several decades, Canada has been one of the leading immigrant receiving countries of the world, and the contemporary immigration trends for Canada exhibit significant increases in the numbers of people migrating from Asia and also the Americas, which including the Caribbean, and an overall percentage decrease in the European immigrant population. The large urban centers of Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal are experiencing dynamic cultural processes that increase the diversity of each metropolitan area. And Canada's largest city, Toronto, attracts more immigrants from all reaches of planet Earth than any other Canadian city. Asian immigration is most notable along the west coast of the country, and the city of Vancouver and its hinterlands in the province of British Columbia are the host to two types of immigrants from Asia: those who settle year-round and also others who use the city and environs as a second home or home for their families while they commute to work in Hong Kong. Next issue is centrifugal force, the challenge of Quebec and the rights of Indigenous Canadians. The greatest ethnicity-related challenge confronting the Canadian federal government and the unity of the country is the devolutionary pressure from a development of French-speaking Canadians toward greater autonomy. Around 25% of Canadians are French-speaking descendants of the French settlers, which also known as Francophones, who came to the area during the earlier stages of European development in the region. Most French Canadians are distributed along the St. Lawrence River, primarily in the province of Quebec, and most Francophones or French-speaking Canadians have an extremely strong sense of being a separate national group within the larger Canadian political frame. They see themselves as having a different ethnic history, different religion, and different culture than the English-speaking Canadian majority. The Quebec separatist movement gained momentum during the 1980s and became especially strong during the 1990s. The decades of perceived oppression from the federal government, as well as the perception of a threat to their cultural identity and language, have unified members of the Parti Québécois, which a political party formed with the purpose of achieving Quebec's independence from the federal government. The Parti Québécois would like to see an independent country of Quebec. A 1995 referendum pushed for by the Parti Québécois resulted in an almost 50% vote by the residents of Quebec province in favor of separation. One of the most partially organized internal challenges to the Francophones movement for independence comes from an Indigenous Canadian people known as the Cree. The Cree who claim the northern third to northern half of Quebec as their ancestral land. Several groups inside the provincial borders of Quebec wished to remain part of Canada, including English-speaking France, immigrants in Montreal and Indigenous Canadian, which is the Cree. The Cree do not wish to be part of an independent Quebec and threaten to secede from any newly formed Quebec state and remain with Canada. And the northern half of Quebec is the site of significant natural resource potential. In fact, most notably, the generation of hydroelectric power is so successful in northern Quebec that the province is able to export energy to the United States and generate profitable revenue streams. Other than that, the Quebec issue also raises questions of whether the varied regions within Canada, separated by great overland distances, can continue to provide a complementary unity or will embark on a course that will tear the country apart. Other provinces in Canada have grown wary of the federal government's attempts to appease the provincial government of Quebec. The provincial governments of the prairie provinces have successfully lobbied the federal government for greater control over their resources and decisions, using the perceived special treatment given to Quebec as a bargaining tool. Issues related to First Nation in all Canadian provinces and territories are important to the federal government, in addition to the situation in Quebec. In 1973, the Canadian government opened itself to negotiating land claims with organizations representing Native peoples. Until that date, little had been done in much of Canada to implement the treaties that had been negotiated with Native people in the 1800s. Now, several areas are identified for a degree of local governance. Plus, the largest area, Nunavut, which also known as Land of the People in Inuit language, became a new territory with its own elected government in 1999, although it will remain subject to the federal control. Other agreements were reached in northern Quebec and with the Inuvialuit people in the northwest Arctic. Further discussions are underway. Although many of the smaller claims may take several years to resolve, some are complex because of overlapping land claims and because bargaining involves the often opposing interests of native groups, the federal government, and provincial governments. Moving on to the sub-region in North America, there are two sub-regions in North America, which are the United States of America and Canada. And these are the list of regions in the United States of America, which are New England, Megalopolis, Manufacturing Belt, Appalachia, Alaska and Hawaii, U.S. Heartland, Midwest and Great Plains, Pacific Coast, the South and Western Mountains. And today I'll be covering Pacific Coast, the South and Western Mountains. First is Pacific Coast. We will be looking at the map of Pacific Coast, the list of the states and the economic activities. But first, let me tell you a little bit about Pacific Coast. From the Seattle area around Puget Sound in the north to San Diego near the Mexican border in the south, the U.S. Pacific Coast has become a second national core, close in economic importance to that of the region between Boston and Washington, D.C. The settlement increased after the arrival of transcontinental railroads in the 1870s and 1880s. Plus, before World War II, the main products were timber in the north and farm products and the growing motion picture industry in the south. The national defense needs for World War II in the Pacific then placed manufacturing and military centers along the coast. Plus, the Puget Sound in the north and San Diego in the south became major naval centers. Seattle, once the corporate headquarters of the Boeing Aircraft Company, grew as the company produced bombers and jet airliners. In fact, the Columbia River became a staircase of huge hydroelectricity stations that support 11 aluminium smelters and the Hanford nuclear weapons facility, among other industries, at the expense of the river's salmon population. Moreover, Los Angeles in the south also had major aircraft manufacturers, Lockheed and McDonnell Douglas, both now linked to Boeing, together with a variety of manufacturing and service industries. Here you can see the map of Pacific Coast on your screen, and here is the list of states in Pacific Coast, which are California, Oregon and Washington. There are 3 economic activities that I'll be explaining to everyone. Firstly is farming and plantation, which in the industry of agriculture and located at California in United States. The activities are tens of thousands of acres produce almonds, pistachios, citrus crops and numerous vegetables. The agricultural output of the Central Valley alone is greater than that of any other individual US state. The fact that California's economy is so large and diverse creates misconceptions about the size of any one sector of the economy, including agriculture. To put this in perspective, the $47.1 billion generated by California agriculture, which is 2% of the state's economy, was the largest amount for any state and made up 12.5% of the total agricultural production for all 50 states. It also was more than 19 billion greater than the agricultural production from the second largest state, Iowa, and more than twice the amount of the state with the third greatest production, Texas. Further perspective is provided by the fact that the agricultural production in California was greater than the total GDP of 3 states. Next economic activities is programming services, which in the industry of software and located in Redmond, Washington, United States. The company is Microsoft Corporation. Microsoft was founded on April 4, 1975, and the founders are Bill Gates and Paul Allen, and the company achieved total revenue of $125,843 in the year of 2019. Do you guys know how Microsoft deals with COVID-19 pandemic in Washington? There are many efforts have been made, and Microsoft is actually aiding these efforts around the globe. But they also have a focus on helping the local community in which many of their employees live and work around Washington State. And here are some of the efforts. Firstly, collecting data to better understanding the spread of the virus. Data is crucial in shaping Washington's response to the disease. Accurate case and deaths details drive critical forecasts for hospital capacity, influence estimates of economic impacts, and inform decisions. In fact, Microsoft Data Science team has partnered with the Washington State Department of Health to build an efficient system that allows data collection about hospitalizations and disease incidents. They help to manage the volume of data gathered and the effect has on platform performance. Secondly, real-time response capabilities. The joining forces with Seattle-based non-profit healthcare provider Swedish Health Services, they have also built an app to give a real-time view of resources and keep track of COVID-19 patients. The Power app is being rolled out to hospitals in the Puget Sound area and has also been shared with the Department of Health and the City of Seattle. Lastly, using technology to reduce transmission. Reducing contact with others is key to limiting the spread of the virus. They have built an app to help enable drive-through testing centers and help in the collection of biological samples. This also means data can be collected and processed faster and more accurately. And this app is also being used in New York and Washington DC and is likely to be rolled out more widely. In fact, there are many other efforts which you can find them in the internet. And the last economic activities that I'll be explaining is financial services, which in the industry of banking and located in California, Washington, and Oregon. The company that developed these economic activities is MUFG Union Bank, and it is the bank of Tokyo Mitsubishi UFJ Ltd BTMU and was renamed to MUFG Bank Ltd. And it also ranked by as the largest in Japan and the fourth largest in the world. Based on the article of Los Angeles, June 18, 2020, Union Bank, a leading West Coast bank, committed $10 million to launch a community recovery program aimed at addressing social and racial injustice in the United States. This initiative is specifically focused on building economic stability, including supporting access to capital, entrepreneurship, job retention, and retraining. Union Bank also notified colleges and clients that the bank, including all retail banking branch locations, will close at 1 p.m. local time on Friday, June 19 to commemorate Juneteenth, the annual celebration of the end of slavery in the United States. The pandemic has had a disproportionate impact on Black, Asian, and Latino communities, both in terms of adverse health outcomes as well as increased economic headwinds due to layoff, business closures, and related financial challenges, said Greg Sibley, president of Union Bank. They are committed to support these communities in particular and are taking the necessary next step to apply the right resources towards supporting communities of color. Moving on to the South, the American South extends from the southern Atlantic coastal plain westward to the southern Mississippi River and beyond into eastern Texas. Western Texas has more in common with other states along the Mexican border. The northern panhandle of Texas has some cultural ties to the south but others to the Great Plains and western United States. And Florida is physically part of the South, but economically and culturally it has ties to the Southeast and Northeast United States as well as to Latin America. As you can see on your screen, this is the map of the South, and this is the list of the states in the South, which they have 16 states in the South. The first economic activity is services, which in the industry of tourism are located in Lake Buena Vista and Bay Lake, Florida, US. The company is the Walt Disney Company, and the resort comprises 4 theme parks, 2 water parks, 27 theme resort, 9 non-Disney hotels, several golf courses, and other entertainment venues. According to a 2011 report, the $18.2 billion in annual economic activity generated locally by Walt Disney Parks and Resorts accounts for 2.5% of Florida's gross domestic product. And Disney is also the largest taxpayer in Central Florida, making the park revenue boon for the government. In 2014, Orlando saw a record 32 million hotel room nights sold that brought in hotel bed tax revenue of over $200 million, also a record for Orange County, Florida. Next economic activity is space services, which in the industry of space and located in Houston, Texas, US. The company is Joseph L. Smith and Associates. It was established in 1961. The Lyndon B. Johnson Space Center, JSC, is NASA's Center for Human Spaceflight, where human spaceflight training, research, and flight control are conducted. It was built and leased to NASA by Joseph L. Smith and Associates, and it also was renamed in honor of the late U.S. President and Texas native Lyndon B. Johnson by an act of the United States Senate on 19 February 1973. The last economic activity of the South is manufacturers and tire supplies in the industry of manufacturing and located in Greenville, South Carolina, United States. The company is Michelin North America Incorporation. Just for an additional information, the company offers tires for passenger car, sport utility vehicle like truck, recreational vehicle, earth mover, heavy-duty trucks, and bicycles. Michelin development contributes to the economic regeneration and growth of the communities, where Michelin has facilities by providing low-interest loans to small businesses or startups. In addition to financial support, the program also provides business expertise from Michelin's network of professionals. The program originally began in France and successfully spread to North America in 2006. Michelin development first began in Ontario, Canada, as a way to provide abiding support and involvement in the region after the company announced it would no longer produce tires in the Waterloo area. The initial program was active for 3 years, during which time more than 3 million was granted for 20 loans that led to the creation of more than 530 jobs. In 2009, when the United States was experiencing difficult economic circumstances, Michelin launched the Michelin Development Upstate program to provide support to the area that is home to the company's North American headquarters and several manufacturing facilities. In 6 years, the program has awarded 51 loans that have created approximately 500 jobs. The Upstate program focuses on socially or economically disadvantaged businesses in the 10-country region. And now we have reached the last region of the South, which is Western Mountains. The western one-third of the United States is a mountainous region. The highest ranges are the Rockies on the east and the Sierra Nevada of California and the Cascades on the west. They are separated by broad plateau areas and areas of basin and range. Population densities are low throughout much of the area. The federal government owns extensive land throughout the region, and vast territories are designated as national parks, national forests, or grazing lands. Plus, settlement focuses on irrigated farmlands and towns that grew up as markets, mining centers, or nodes on the transcontinental railroads. Here you can see the map of the Western Mountains and the list of states in Western Mountains, which are New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, and Idaho. There are 3 economic activities that I'll be explaining to everyone, which the first one is services, ski and resort services, which in the industry of hotel and tourism are located in northern Utah, Salt Lake City, Park City, Ogden, and Provo. It is actually the most accessible ski resorts and have the best snow conditions to ski. Fun facts, do you guys know that 6 of the top 10 resorts with the most accessibilities and 6 of the top 10 with the best snow conditions were located in both northern and southern Utah? Deer Valley Resort, which is located in Park City, is on the first rank as the top ski resorts in North America. And northern Utah ski resorts are most favorable among tourists because of its nearness to international airport, as well as close to other ski resorts, and it is possible for skiers to ski at multiple locations in a day. Meanwhile, in southern Utah, Brian Head Ski Resort, which is located near Cedar City, is the former Olympic venues built in 2002. Utah Olympic Park and Utah Olympic Oval operation was for training and competition, and at the same time allows public to do activities such as ski jumping, bobsleigh, and speed skating. There is statistic on economic impact of spending by visitors to Utah for skiing and snowboarding on 2005/2006. The ski resort infrastructure represents a sizable investment in the state, and the total replacement value of the state's 13 operating ski resorts and 1 idle resort is estimated at $874.6 million. This includes the cost of ski lifts, runs, and day lodges. Additionally, the alpine ski industry is often a catalyst for additional real estate development, such as hotels, restaurants, condominiums, and other hospitality and entertainment venues. In contrast to many other businesses, the alpine ski industry draws a majority of its business from outside of the state's boundaries. This results in a positive economic impact on Utah. Next economic activity is manufacturing. In the industry of wholesale trade, retail and consumer services, clothing and clothing accessories. The name of the company is Crocs, which they do business worldwide and headquarters based in Newark, Colorado, US. They produce shoes and also shoes accessories. Fun facts about Crocs. Crocs used to manufacture foam clog shoes or boating shoes. Crocs also launched a free pair of healthcare in response to the coronavirus pandemic, offering a free pair of its comfort shoes to healthcare workers, which over 860,000 pairs were donated. Colorado manufacturing output is strong and keep on increasing, where it started from 15 billion USD in 2005. The last economic activity is semiconductor manufacturing in the industry of high-tech production and located in Boise, Idaho. The company name is Micron Technology Incorporation, which is the only micron technology manufacturer in US of dynamic random access memory DRAM chips. Fun facts: do you know science and technology industry is the largest industry in Idaho? Boise is the home of Micron Technology, and Hewlett-Packard HP has operated a large plant which devoted primarily to laserjet printers production. Moreover, technology investment and the high-tech industry is the most focused in Idaho, which include Hewlett-Packard, EDACORP, Corp, Incorporation, Clearwater Analytics, Healthwise, Cradlepoint, Crucial.com, ClickBank, Metagig, Mobile Data Force, Mark Monitor, Seabase, Ballyhoo, Interaction NA, Wirestone, and Microsoft Bodybuilding.com. In fact, Idaho offered 1,500 new jobs in technology sector in 2018, 3% higher than in 2017, and have 53,000 workers in 2019 in the sector. That's all from me. Thank you.
Je vous remercie.
Gracias.
Vielen Dank.
Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River. Life is old there, older than the trees, younger than the mountains, growing like a breeze. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home. Country roads, all my memories gather round her. Miner's lady, stranger to blue water, dark and dusty, painted on the sky, misty taste of moonshine, teardrop in my eye. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home. Country roads, I hear her voice in the morning hour. She calls me. The radio reminds me of my home far away. Driving down the road, I get a feeling that I should have been home yesterday. Yesterday.